across all time zones, covering both hemispheres. It's time for another installment of Authors First on the Artist First Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can find them. There are thousands of them, literally thousands of them. You can find them at the artistfirst.com website. They're posted around the world on other sites as well, but Artist First is probably the best place to go. Our guest author tonight is a prolific writer, kind of like L. Ron Hubbard, you know what I mean? Well, folks, you may not understand that comment, but this guy writes some books. We've actually had him on before, and all of those shows are at the location I mentioned earlier. Our guest was awarded a BSEE degree in electrical engineering from Stevens Institute of Technology and currently works as an embedded software engineer. He has 4 sons. He's been married for over 30 years to the wisest woman I have ever met. And he is currently living with that wise woman and the youngest son in the secluded hills of Sussex County, New Jersey. He's got a website. We'll have it up on the site, and you can see the 2 book covers we're going to be talking about from the homepage for those of you listening live. It's my pleasure to welcome Michael Lyons. Michael!
Z-Man! Thank you for that introduction. That was awesome.
Well, I looked at all the what I could have read about you, and I didn't know if we had enough time.
Well, I am not, for all you people out there, I am not going to start a cult today.
Elrond. They killed him. They put him up on an island and then said he vanished off into space. That's a whole nother. Oh, that is it. What's that guy's name? Miscavige? Yeah.
Could be.
That's the fellow that's running. Oh my God! What's
the cult?
The cult. Yeah. What's it called again?
Right,
oh,
we shouldn't mention
Scientology.
it because yeah, but they'll sue you. So shush.
The people they have a publishing arm.
Right.
And we have generously hosted them on numerous occasions. So
maybe they won't sue you.
Yeah, I doubt they'll sue us because we have been most helpful to them.
Okay, good. Well, then I'm still not going to start a competing cult.
Yeah, we better just move on from that. Well, let's give some background first before we get into this too much. Folks, I interviewed Michael a number of years ago now about a book that he wrote then, which we might touch on tonight. And I was so impressed with Michael and the other owners of the station, and we offered Michael his own show on the network, and he brought along...
along with the wise woman, yes.
Yes, along with the wise woman. I used to introduce them as the wise ones.
Right.
But I was scolded, and Michael's asked me not to do that anymore, so I'm honoring his wishes.
Excuse me. We're the unwise one.
Sorry, I'm hacking up a fur ball there. The program is called The Soul of the Everyman. It is a serious yet lighthearted, one of the most intellectual shows we have. It probably is. I'm going to change that. It is the most intellectual show we have on the network, and we are very, very proud of that. And you guys can go check that out anytime after this show, and I'm sure you will enjoy the many very deep topics. I mean, folks, these guys on that program, they delve into some serious stuff. So we'll just leave that there. Well, they're not going dead yet. Let's look at the batteries on we may have a technical issue and have to take a break later in the show because some batteries in our things aren't working all the well. But Michael, let's do for the sake of listeners that may be hearing about you for the very first time, give them a little bio. I like to say you were born, then what happened?
Well, it's a long, boring story. But in fact, what you mentioned about the soul of the everyman, Scott, really has been a pleasure of ours for the last coming up on a little over 3 years now. And you say it's intellectual, and I would agree with that to some extent, but I think we delve into matters of the heart and of the spirit and things that kind of matter. They're kind of close to the bone, if you will. And certainly the star of that show is Margaret, because I just sit by and I bask in her knowledge, and I provide comic relief and occasional nonsense. But we have really enjoyed working with you guys on Artist First Radio and having that channel. And it was something that seriously we had never considered doing. And it was after the first interview that you and I had about the book we wrote about our son that you kind of first convinced me, and then I had to drag Margaret. I said, it'll be fun. and it really has been fun. And if you guys really want to treat, you have to look up our New Year's show where we have 2 hours of unrivaled intellectualism in that one.
There is one show that you definitely should not listen to.
That's not true. It's a good show.
No,
we won't mention it, but we'll let them. This will be your Where's Waldo? Scavenger hunt for the evening. Later on, you can go look at our archives and see if you can find that one show. But I am an engineer and a card-carrying, pointy-headed nerd. But I spent most of my career as a software engineer. I've only been writing since I would say the middle of this last decade. Around 2015 was when we published the first book, and I found it very well received. Christopher's sort of biography that we wrote of him, and I'd always wanted to write fiction. So the next book that I released was a collection of short stories, and that was The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed, and I think it was eponymous. But that book is still available out there on Amazon, and it's gotten a lot of interesting reviews. And from that sprung this current series that we're talking about this evening. And one of the stories in there was It's in the Blood, and I think you guys put the cover of It's in the Blood, which was published as a separate novelette, if you will, really basically as one of the stories in The Fat Man. And it became the germ of this series, the Blood series. And before you folks who are hearing these titles thinking, well, this is some sort of a slasher, it's more of a fantasy. It's sort of a mashup between anime and mythology. It's kind of my take on an interesting character. His name is Dev Kalian. He's the hero of the series. And from It's in the Blood, which was this sort of short story or novelette, I continued to write Destroyer's Blood, which came out the next year, which was book 1 of the Blood series, and then First Blood, which was book 2, and now we've concluded that whole series, and that's what the concluding book was released really just this past November 20th, called Time for Blood. And it's a rip-roaring, beautifully written fantasy series, if I say so myself.
I would agree.
Well, toot your own horn.
That's right. Self-promotion. It's all about promotion, sure.
But it was a very fun. So I've had a lot of fun authing, I guess, and we've had tons of fun being radio show hosts and being on the radio with you folks, and the opportunity to to get on and be interviewed rather than be the host is a precious one.
Well, you're brave. I've been asked to be a guest on many shows as recently as 2 weeks ago, and I say no. I don't know why. Of course, I'm not trying to sell a book or anything. You have a reason to be a guest. I don't. But you're an entertaining fellow. We love to have you on our show whenever you deign to come on. That will never happen again.
It was great.
That will never happen again.
And of course, Scott, you are the voice that introduces us, and you're our engineer in the studio, if you will. So we love having Scott there to talk to and bounce some things off of once in a while.
Well, I'm barely employable, but try to get my job done as I can. But I was absolutely serious, folks. If you've never listened to The Soul of the Everyman, please do yourself a favor. Go pick an episode. They're all labeled categorically, and see what you think. Michael and his wife are wise. Just keeps coming to the surface for me. Intellectual. You're right. Might not be the best word. You said more topics of the heart, and I absolutely.
We are going to start a cult too.
Well, that would be cool. And
that would be cool, wouldn't it?
I think they're trying to legalize magic mushrooms.
Oh.
Honestly, they are trying to legalize it. I was implying maybe somehow that fits in with your program, but all kidding aside, they have found tremendous medical benefits for certain people with certain ailments, mental ailments, that is, and I wouldn't be surprised if many states begin to legalize those in 2021.
We are going to get high on life and not on mushrooms. But psilocybins, I forget there are a lot of medical as many drugs come from nature. We can go on and on about that, but certainly, if it's regulated, it's probably a heck of a lot safer than it is if people just go off into the desert and pick up something that looks like peyote.
Now, I was reading about it. It's fantastic. The results are amazing. And I think because now it's considered, medical marijuana is available in many, many states now. They realize it has a benefit. The CBD oil for some people has a tremendous benefit. Others no benefit. But I don't know what got me started on that topic other than thinking about your program.
We can, our program is like drugs. It's addictive.
Well, I know some musicians that used to chomp on the psilocybin mushrooms, but not me. That's just not. I've never done that, never will. But if it helps people, go for it, ladies and gentlemen. The first book you wrote, and you were talking about this, is entitled "There Is a Reaper," and folks, it's about an extremely difficult topic. Michael and Margaret lost a child to cancer. And ladies and gentlemen, just that in and of itself, just think about that. There are no words in the English language to describe that, yet Michael got it together and wrote a book, and it did very, very well. Now, that's right. The one reason I didn't read your normal opening is you've won so many awards, it takes like an hour just to read them.
Well, they're all fake, though.
Oh.
No. I mean, There's a Reaper won a lot of awards, and it was very well received. And we've also, you're right. It's nice to get sort of the acclamation of folks who read a lot of fiction and have found that even my fictional books, please the reader, and that is nice. I don't talk too much about the awards. We just put them in there. In fact, the publisher, our editor and publisher kind of says, "Well, you got to put them in there." Like, all right, but it's more fun to connect with readers, and it's more fun to just entertain people. Of course, Christopher's book was really a tribute, something that we had to write. Felt that it was basically to honor him. It was released. That book was released on the 20th anniversary of his passing, and it was sort of a retrospective and sort of a catharsis for us, for our family. But it was, it also became sort of the precipitating factor in starting to put writing out there into the world. And it's easier than ever, right? It's very easy for artists, for musicians to put their work up on YouTube or put their work up on a website like Artists First and get it out there, but you're also taking a little bit of a risk, maybe someone won't like me, and then you just get over that.
I have thousands, maybe tens of thousands that folks, you're welcome to send email to this live program or any program you're listening to, even as an archive. If you're listening to it as an archive, tell us what. Sometimes we have to figure out what show you're complaining about, so put it in the subject line or something, and we'll make sure it gets to the right place. But
be specific with your hate mail. Come on, people.
Most of them start out with the word Z-Man, so you know where it's going.
You know where it's going. It's going downhill from there.
Yeah, from there. Who cares what the show is? But, after writing There Is a Reaper, which, like you say, had you had any, earlier in your life, had you had any thoughts about being an author? Of course, you just explained why you wrote that book, and what happened after that, but like when you were in college, did you ever go, hey, I'm going to write books someday?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I would say the inspiration really was my mom, who was an English teacher, and she does also write. I haven't convinced her yet to put her writing into publication, but she's a very good writer. And, I always found at an early age, what I do for a living is basically type. I tell people who, they say, what do you do? What do you do for a living? I type, and they give me money. Because that's all I do. I mean, when you're a software engineer, you basically have been typing your whole life. But the process of authoring a novel is, I would say, something which is within the reach of anybody, but to put your thoughts cogently down on paper, to be able to organize them into a narrative that is readable and enjoyable, it really just takes time and practice. And one thing I would say for anybody who's aspiring to be an author is be a reader first. Read voraciously and get into your bones the way that words work, because I'll tell you one thing which is very important to any sort of organized prose is there's a bit of a music to the words themselves. They have to fit together. As you read them, you may not notice this, but if you read something that's written poorly, it kind of is awkward in your mind. It has bumps. It has unexpected catches, and you're like, well, why did they say this and not that? And that process of annoying the reader is why most people put prose down. It isn't the idea. Everyone can have a good idea about what to write about, or sometimes it isn't even what you're writing about in the sense of its the plot, if you will. It's almost always the prose which throws people off and kind of makes them put the book down. So part of the craft of writing, and it is a craft, is practice. You really have to continue to write. So all through my life, to answer your question more directly, I've written many, many, many things, not just fiction. A lot of it was written as presentations, or it was written as longer works of either technical or non-technical nature. But you still have to use the same craft of conveying information. And as a reader, I've been a voracious reader since they taught me how to read. I was reading books. I have stacks and stacks of books. They're all over the house. And once you've read enough of good authors, you absorb the way you find what pleases you, and then you don't copy it, of course, but you can sort of use those, like all good musicians do. You use the influences of music that you like. It gets inside you, and then you create your own music. And you can always see the people will say, well, who influenced you? And they'll say, well, this artist or that artist. It's the same with authors. Who influenced you? You say this author, that author, because it brings sort of a background of presentation of kind of the way that they spoke to you is how you're now using that to speak to others with your own story, of course.
Well, not everybody is going to write a book. Not everybody's going to write a song. Not everybody's going to paint a painting, a sculpture. In fact, it's extremely rare in the population. Lots of people write books that never see the light of day. It's still in the dresser drawer. And
True.
The person passes, and it's lost to history. So get it done, folks. Get it out there. And the fact that you've accomplished all that you have with all of your books and your radio show. You know, God forbid we're all going to leave this planet someday. What do you say on your program? No one gets out alive? You say that a lot?
No one gets off the planet alive,
there
which
you
is
go.
our tagline, and it's extremely inspiring and uplifting.
Yeah, if you're not depressed enough,
Right.
then that'll help you. But the fact is that you know, folks, when you look back, I don't know, let's just pick the Greek 2,000 years ago in Greek, because a lot of the stuff you're going to be hearing about tonight draws from that sort of. But no one remembers who had the biggest palace. No one remembers who had the most horses or the biggest harem, or et cetera, et cetera. But what we do have are sculptures. We have literature. We have art, is what I'm trying to say. We have art. And that's what history seems to value. Not the richest people, not the this and that. They value the dimension of humanity that is unique on this planet. I don't know of other creatures besides humans that participate in art, but you know, I don't know where, and all of the stuff that you have is now out there and should be available in cyberspace forever, at least until the next mass coronal ejection of the sun wipes out all the magnetism on the planet.
Which could be tomorrow.
It very well could be, but it could also be a long time in the future.
It could be, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Scott. It is art that passes through the centuries, and I believe the quintessential thing about it is that when you sit down and go into, let's say, a museum or pick up a book that was written 500 years ago, and you find that the ideas and the emotion and the situations that are being talked about relate to you directly in the present day. It's the coolest form of time travel. You're touching people and touching into their emotions and into their feelings and making them understand your thoughts without ever having met them, with no opportunity. These people are dust. They died 500, 1,000, 2,000 years ago. Yet their words are as live today as though they were standing or sitting next to you and talking, or their art or their music. And we are lucky in the sense that we live in an age where literally everything is captured kind of pseudo forever. And we're also unlucky because it kind of makes it into a very noisy environment. One way of looking at the current environment is you can publish anything, and people do. But and in earlier ages there was a much higher bar. If you wanted to be an artist, let's say, and you were a great sculptor, you still had to find somebody who would patronize you, and you had to go through all these hoops, and you had to maybe starve to death and become this tragic figure whose art might never be recognized until long after their death, for argument's sake, which happened to a lot of artists. These days, with 2 clicks, you can publish the worst tripe and garbage, or the most incredibly wonderfully written, and there's so much wonderful fiction and wonderful nonfiction out there, but it also makes it an incredibly competitive environment, and it is difficult to even get really good things recognized, which to some extent a program like this or the other programs or venues that you're able to kind of get the word out there does help a little bit. But the words, like all the things that we're doing today, are archived forever. So 100 years from now, people will be able to look back and say, those guys were idiots. Wow.
Yes. And just in an effort to depress listeners who are not depressed yet, I would like to bring up Edison is a company that Edison Research tracks things like this industry, the Wi-Fi radio industry, and they put out a statistic recently that I got to get this right, Yeah, 450 podcasts every single day begin for the first time.
Wow.
Every single day, 450 people go, you know what? I'm going to start a podcast. Every single day. If you do the math, folks, it's about 150,000 a year. And this stat has been valid for the last 3 years. So 450, you didn't have enough choices. 450,000 new podcasts have come online in the past 36 months.
Right.
Well, let's see how many of them make it through at least 10 episodes or a year.
Right.
It's actually caused a lot of problems. There's no advertising dollars left in this business because there are 150,000 hands out for those limited dollars. So it's killing the ability for many programs or many stations to bring in advertising dollars. That's never been our model, but it's certainly devastating to some of these folks. And, you know, my toaster and one of my oven mitts are starting a podcast. I want to announce that. And
I'll listen to that.
They'll be up and yeah, exactly. You know, I'm sorry, and I'm going to get hate mail for this. I love all kinds of music. I've been a professional musician for 43 years. I'm not sure when I listen to certain stations how people can stand to listen to some types of music. But that's my opinion, and it doesn't matter because people obviously do, and people that can't read music, can't play any instrument, and can't sing win Grammys.
Right. George
Okay.
Thorogood, for our sake.
You guys can send hate mail to dj@artistfirst.com. I don't know. I wish there were less. Okay, I better get off that topic. I'm digging a hole here I probably can't get out of. I liked your words, though, when you called it noisy.
Yeah.
That's very well stated.
Yeah, it's sort of it is a sort of an engineering term, but basically what you have is you have so many lights that you can't. It's the forest for the trees. You can't pick out any one of them, and that's the same thing in ebooks or in publishing. It's the same thing in many media these days. And at the end of the day, you can't go into this thinking that you're going to be an overnight success. Before, the barrier was you had to find an agent and a publisher and somebody who would actually not reject your works. You'd send out 50 agent inquiries, and you'd go to 50 publishers, and maybe one of them would say, maybe next year, it looks okay. But it would take 2 years or 3 years to get your first, novel out there. And if it was a flop, they'd never talk to you ever again. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. The barrier now is to fight your way through the crowd, because it's always Black Friday at Macy's, if anyone knows what that means, and you can never kind of get anyone to pay attention to you. And you're right, advertising dollars are gone. So you go into this, first of all, for the love of it. And then you have to, be sort of circumspect about how you advertise, because it can cost a tremendous amount of money to just get your book out there and advertise it and get almost nothing back. So I would say to folks who are getting into this business, don't go into it thinking you're going to be the next J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling is J.K. Rowling. You have to be you. And if you've ever read her story, she spent a lot of time at the bottom scraping along like the rest of us are, and she got her one break. It is like that still. You still have to get that one break. But then if your work is good and you've polished your craft and you've got a good story, you will get readers, because one thing people are hungry for still is good content. There's so much, CRAP out there that it is daunting to even think about looking at the next one, because the last 500 you've looked at have been horrible. So you pick up the next one, you go, oh, wait a minute, this actually is in English, So it's hard, though. It's hard.
More depressing news in the publishing business came out this week. Two of the largest publishers, they may be the two largest publishers in America, are merging.
Oh, really? Who?
They will handle, I don't want to say who because I might have them wrong, but they are worried because the combination of these two becoming one company will control 33% of all books published in America. There's a great idea. There's a great idea. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't realize this until I got into this business. A sweetheart deal for an author when they sign up with one of those big-ass publishers that we're talking about, a sweetheart deal is 7 pennies on the dollar. Yes,
Yeah.
Look it up, folks. You're saying, no, that can't be. Z-Man, you're exaggerating. I wish I was exaggerating.
Right.
Well, maybe I'm saying that in reverse order. I think the author obviously deserves more than 7 pennies when you plop down $1 to buy a book and they only get 7 pennies. Where's the rest of it? Okay. Welcome to reality.
Welcome to reality. I think that's why a lot of people go the self-publishing route, because if you do make it, you do get to keep more of your proceeds. But in any case, the books that I've chosen to write for this particular series are all kind of focused in the fantasy genre, and that's also a very crowded genre. There's a lot of fantasy out there, and to be a little unique, this idea of as you mentioned, Greek mythology kind of came to me. I thought, well, I like that. I like those stories. I've always liked those stories, and so our hero, Deucalion, who you meet in It's in the Blood, is a demigod. He's a Greek demigod. But he's also a rebel, and he doesn't like anyone in his family, and they don't like him. And he's the kind of person who's sort of an iconoclast. He likes to stay away from everything that's going on. He's kind of at war with the conventional, if you will, and his sort of rebellion, both against his father and against his family, is that he's living among the mortals all the time. And he's also, rather than following this Greek demigod, I'm going to dress in a peplos and run around half naked all the time. He is into Japanese anime, and he carries he follows the Bushido, and he carries a katana, which happens to be a magical sword. And he's the furthest thing away. So I've kind of mashed up those two things. I've put Japanese anime, which I really like a lot, in with Greek mythology, which I really like a lot, and that's where we jump off. And the whole of Destroyer's Blood is sort of his unfortunate journey, sort of being forced back, him and his magic sword, whose name is Betrayer, being forced back into becoming, dragged, if you will, back into contact with his family, and having to be the hero that he doesn't want to be, sort of an anti-hero, sort of somebody who doesn't want to be bothered. When Destroyer's Blood came out, it was really very well received, and people loved Dev. They loved Betrayer, whose nickname is Trey. And the arc of that story, where we end with Destroyer's Blood, is where I don't want to give away anything, but where Trey is sort of transformed, and the whole of First Blood, which is the second book in the series, the whole of First Blood is really more Betrayer's story than it is Dev's story. Dev's there, and Dev is the main character. Trey is the main character now, and the overarching villain, the first sort of villain that we meet in Destroyer's Blood is this horrible monster, but we have sort of a twist at the end, and it turns out that somebody else is behind the monster. And then in First Blood, we find out that there's yet a third twist, and somebody else is behind somebody else who was behind the monster. Because I like to write things that are a little bit complicated, and they've got some depth to them. So throughout all of First Blood, we really develop these characters. We see, that they have to kind of unravel the mystery, as well as go through a lot more adventures. Both one of the predominant characters in First Blood, evil characters, is there's tons and tons of zombies. So we throw in now, we have Japanese anime, mythology, and zombies.
Well, I know you're thinking ahead about the movie series that's going to be produced.
Yes, I am.
It's perfect. It's just perfect.
It would work out well. It would be a great movie. I actually got a comment like that one time from one of the people who was saying this would make a great Netflix series. I said, yeah, from your lips to God's ears. So at the end of First Blood, because I don't want to give away spoilers, but at the end of First Blood, we kind of ended. I hate cliffhangers, but second books or second movies in any movie series are always middle of the book series, right? Because you kind of have to have lots of things that are still unresolved, but yet wind it up in a fairly satisfactory way. So we wind First Blood up in a satisfactory way, but there's a lot going on, and so we open up this penultimate book, this final book in the trilogy, Time for Blood, with we know who the ultimate villain is. We know what the conflict is. The zombies have still taken over the world, and there's lots of horrible things happening, but we don't know how it's all going to end up. And in this book, we really find that both Dev and Trey reach the heights of their powers. They mature. They find the actual purpose that they have in this kind of whole overarching story, and we find that the villain isn't as villainous as maybe we thought, and that there's other motivating factors. And it's as the last book should be. It winds everything up. We really get to a very satisfactory conclusion at the end, but yet there's yet another hook at the end. So if I ever want to go back to this world and hook it up again, there's a nice little twist at the end of the book which allows us to do that. But I was very pleased when I finally got to the end of it, because one thing about writing, Z, the best thing about writing is having done with it. It is such a chore to write.
You are the creator of this great universe.
It's been fun.
Did you know, obviously going from one book to 4, do I have that right? Yeah, 4.
Yeah.
When you sat down to write book 1, you did not really know. I guess I should put this in the form of a question like Jeopardy. Did you know where? I mean, in your mind, were you thinking several books out? Were you thinking several plot lines out, or do you just ride with it?
I am. There are two schools of thought in writing. There's what they call the planners and the pantsers. Okay, the planners are folks who plan everything out, and they know exactly where the book's going to go, and they have all 4 novels plotted out to the nth degree, and every twist and turn, and that's fine. I find nothing wrong with that, but that's not my process. I'm much more of a pantser, a seat of the pants writer. So I start with great characters, or what I think are great characters. I put them into interesting situations, and then I let it develop. And what becomes interesting is as that story develops, as the arc of the story develops, I always find ways to tie it back to the beginning. So one thing you'll notice in my writing is I have it's sort of elliptical. I always come back and replay a bit of the theme from the first one back into the future. And so what that gives it is, as you're going along, there's some continuity, but there's also some foreshadowing, because things that were not necessarily important, but they were there. Several chapters in the same book, or sometimes in the next book, you'll say, "Oh yeah, that thing that was then is now. This is why it's now." And to do that, you have to be familiar with, as you write. I say, don't make your writing airtight. Don't make it so that everything appears to be like a fait accompli, or it's all just so neatly packaged, because then it has no. It's like you're constraining it. It's got nowhere to go. You have to leave some loose ends in everything, because life is like that. We don't all, you don't package up your life and get everything tied down. There's always something going on in the background, and those going on in the background things, they say, life is what happens while you're making plans. You have to let your heroes be making plans, and then life's got to happen to them, and they've got to deal with it, and that makes it real. It kind of it lends this realism to the characters, because they say, well, we're going to do X, Y, Z tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes, and something else happens, which means they can't do X, Y, Z, and they have to do A, B, C, and A, B, C means that all the things that we were planning on doing aren't going to happen, and it's like that. It gives it a bit of realism. So to answer your question more directly, I do sort of plan out the books, but it's in a very rough outline. And each book it starts out as a 2 or 3 page, just bullet points. And then I don't stick with that, but that's my it's a framework. It's like, okay, I think I know where I'm going. It's sort of dark and smoky in here. Let's go. And then we just go. And at the end, when everything's clear, I'll say this without any kind of, hubris, but I say, well, that's interesting, because in the back of the mind, the subconscious kind of weaves things together. And you say, well, that's cool that thing way back there kind of came up to be this thing way up here, and I didn't think about doing that, but it fits so nicely. Like, oh, good. Thank you, subconscious, for being there when I needed you.
Well, you got to keep this straight in your brain so that you don't have missteps with your plot lines and things you wrote previously.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, you do get painted in, but you want it. That's what I mean by not making your writing airtight. Don't paint yourself into a corner. You've got to stick to the broad lines of your characters. You can't make all of a sudden that, there's this magical thing that they pull out of their back pocket that you never saw before that makes everything go away. Because people hate that. It's this get out of jail card. You've got to make the characters have to discover something about themselves that they either learned or is an outgrowth of things that they did before, that then gives them the ability to grow into solving a problem. So it's like, if this had happened, 2 or 3 years ago, it would have devastated me. But because I've learned a few things and I've got I've gotten some more wisdom, I can deal with it. So you show the arc of their character development. It's also very important that through the whole work, we meet Dev as he's immortal, so he's not aging, but he's a very young at heart and sort of a misanthrope in the beginning. And through the books, you still see him but you see that he's developing and changing and becoming more the man that he was always destined to be, kind of thing. It's like the people around him know he can be better, but he didn't want to be. Well, now he's kind of forced into it, but yet it's also important that it's correct for him to change. So the arc of any character, and Betrayer is another one where the arc of the character is important to the realism of it, because that's how we are. We as people grow through our lives, and we change, and we become different, and that's important for any fictional character as well.
Well, Dev stands for Dev Kalian,
right.
And his father is Prometheus. And for those of you who slept through most of Greek mythology, like I did, that is Prometheus was the god that gave humans fire.
Correct.
So he's got a pretty big, imposing father. He doesn't get along with him. Sound familiar, listeners? Any of you out there have that same problem? But
exactly.
Well, Michael, when a common question interviewing authors is how much of their characters are you and people that you know. So come on, how much of Dev Kalian is Michael Lines?
Well, I wouldn't say a lot of them is me. Of the people in the book, if I was to say, the draw inspiration directly from myself, I would say that some of what I write as Prometheus's voice speaks sort of truly for me, because that's the idea of his character is ubiquitous, but he doesn't take a very active role in everything. He's sort of an advisor, and he's also a presence and very powerful, but he's got some restrictions on what he can do. Dev is inspired in some ways by a couple of my sons, and his way of thinking about things especially is inspired by one of my sons. And Trey is also inspired by somebody I know. I'm not going to name any names here because it is what it is, but the inspiration is only that. The characters themselves, and this is something you might find from a lot of authors, the characters themselves become very real to you as you write about them. So I know I know a lot about Dev's backstory that I never wrote down. I wrote backstory for these folks to make them more real, so that you can kind of make their backstory kind of more present through without saying anything by their actions. Like, what does Dev do in this situation when this happens? What's his reaction? You know, what's his kind of default reaction, and then maybe his oh, I shouldn't be doing that reaction. And it's kind of driven by these it's like when you meet somebody for the first time, you begin to feel more about them than you actually know from their actions. So in becoming real, they become different from anybody you know. It isn't in any way a biography or really drawn from life, but there's that inspiration. And of course, all the villains have their own inspirations as well. Every one of them, I could point to people or persons in my life that have inspired villainy or were villainous people. So it's always fun in fiction to find people that you would have wanted to do bad things to in real life and didn't, and say, oh yeah, well, in my world, you're gonna get it. Well, that's kind of fun too.
Your character's Trey, who is that's the nickname, and her real name is the Betrayer.
Betrayer. Actually, her real name is the light that betrays the darkness. But everyone calls her Betrayer, or Trey for short.
It's interesting that Trey is a sword, ladies and gentlemen. Trey is not a person; it is a weapon.
Right.
And it's interesting that you chose to make the character who is a devastating, punishing weapon female.
Well, I think it's actually very appropriate.
I was going to agree with that. Looking at my past girlfriends, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, I know. I think Trey is. I think most weapons, appropriately, things that are both beautiful and deadly, have a feminine characteristic to them. And Trey herself, was embodied as a sword, but her spirit is drawn directly from the light. And through the course of Destroyer's Blood, she does transform quite a bit. And through First Blood, as I said, she's the main character in First Blood. And really throughout the rest of the series, both in First Blood and Time for Blood, she and Dev are co-equals and partners in everything. So there's a lovely arc of the story that happens with both Dev and Trey. But yes, in the beginning, the very first book, in Time for Blood, it's In the Blood, the novelette, and in Destroyer's Blood, rather, she is a sword, and a very deadly weapon indeed.
The word blood shows up a lot in your titles. Is that... Okay, well, I'm not sure exactly why that is, but... folks, and I'm sorry we haven't mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, and we'll do this again. But, Michael, tell everybody right now, where can they find your books? How can they support you?
Oh, yeah, well, all the books are available on... they're widely available, so they're all available on Amazon. You can look up any one of the titles or my name, Michael Lyons, and you will find... I have about 30 different works on Amazon, but this series, the Blood series, is all on Amazon. They're also, of course, on Apple and and iTunes. They're on Kobo. They're on all the different venues, and most of the books are audiobooks as well. I have a very wonderful narrator. His name is David Bosco, and he's done It's in the Blood. He's done Destroyer's Blood. He's done First Blood, and he will be releasing the audio version of Time for Blood. And I want to announce right now that we're doing an omnibus of all 4 novels called The Adventures of Dev Kalian, and that will be coming out December 20th, just in time for Xmas. And that's available for pre-order right now on Amazon. So for the low price of only $4.99, you get over 1,000 pages of fantasy, all 4 novels, all wrapped up in one sweet tight bow. And that will be coming out. That'll be ebook December 20th, and very shortly thereafter, it will be a monster soft cover novel, which, as I said, is over 1,000 pages, and that will also be coming out as an audiobook. probably late February, because it takes some time to get the audio production done, as you well know, Z. We're everywhere. I also have a website which is M Lyons. We'll put it up on the. I hate giving out wwws, but it's we have a nice website. But Amazon and all those places are where you want to go get it.
Well, folks, it's
And if you want to talk about why everything's blood, I mean, blood is blood. Like the red stuff that comes out of your veins, but it's also in this case, blood means family. When you're my blood, you're my family. So in all the novels, the running theme below all of it is that it's all family. Even the villains are family. It's really all an internecine war, amongst family members. Which, if you're going to have a fight, it's always best to fight with family members because they really know how to fight. So the blood here is all family.
You know their weaknesses.
Yes, and they know yours.
Well, I thought it was clever that, of course everyone's heard the expression "blood is thicker than water,"
Yes.
But you write that blood is mightier than the sword.
Yes, that's the tagline there. Blood is mightier than the sword. And in some ways, swords are things that take blood and that draw blood. So I like these sort of double and triple entendres and everything. I'm that kind of person. I'm the guy you hate at parties.
I thought that was only me. Well, I like how you draw on your characters and how you interject Greek mythology, which I really wish I studied more in school, and the characters. There's a wonderful website called Gaia.com, Gaia.com, and that's one of your characters. Did you know that in advance?
Well, Gaia is the Earth Mother, and yeah, she's a major character in these books. And I wanted to mention it, because I know we're running a little bit short on time, but there's a tremendous amount of humor in these books because I'm a very funny guy, and and people, this isn't a lot. Sometimes fantasy can be kind of a little bit humorless, or a little bit serious, and there are serious parts to this, lots of serious parts to it, but it's got all the way through. It's got humor. There's a lot of banter, a lot of interplay. It's got a lot of sort of sexy moments, but they aren't in any way. It's all PG-13 or lower. It's easily readable for a young adult type audience or even a mid-grade type audience. So it's written for the younger to 20s, 30s age reader. But you can certainly buy these as gifts for teenagers because it's clean. There's nothing in there that is of any nature. Anything more than there's nothing that is in any way graphic. It's all very, very clean, but it's got some tension in it. It's nice, between the characters themselves.
Anyone who listens to the Soul of the Everyman will instantly realize you are a brilliant mind, Mr. Lyons. And so just imagine what, ladies and gentlemen, he puts between the pages of all of these books he's been writing. Congratulations on a great series and all the awards you've been winning, and I think it goes on and on. What's next?
Well, we finished this up and we're gonna kind of publish it all the way out, and then the next thing I'm writing, which will probably be I'll probably be starting it at least after the new year, will be sort of a departure from fantasy. I think I'm going to be writing something more along the lines of more hard science fiction because I like that genre too. But I'm gonna twist that up. I believe the next series is going to also kind of jump off from another short story that I wrote called East of Eden, which is not Steinbeck, but it's an interesting novel. It's also in The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed. So if you want to look up and read that short story, it's also published as a standalone. So East of Eden is an interesting little novelette, and it may turn itself into a multi-book series. I'm thinking of it being more short, a little more shorter stories, if you will, 70, 80,000 words instead of 120, 130,000 words. But it may go that way, and I have some great ideas there. So look for that next.
when you decide to read something that's not your own work, how do you like to digest that? Looking at the pages, or looking at a screen, or listening to it?
Oh, any thereof. I mean, I grew up in the era when was just paperback books or hardcover books. So I love a good book you just hold in your hand. But I have no problem at all, using the Kindle or using the computer, because that's been my career really for the last 30 odd years. So I don't mind that. Audiobooks are fun. I do enjoy an audiobook from the point of view of having somebody read you a story, because we all have that experience of have somebody read you a story. And sometimes it's interesting to see how a narrator will add depth or a different twist on characters, because when you give them a voice, it's not the voice you've heard in your head. It's the narrator's voice that they hear in their head. So it's both interesting and it gives it a different dimension. So I do like audiobooks too. But of all of them, I think I prefer the book in the hand.
I'm the audiobook guy. I don't need to. Well, I guess the comparison I'm making is television. I never watch NFL football on TV. I listen to it on the radio. Of course, I'm in the radio business, but I can do other things. I can clean out my garage. I can do whatever I want and still enjoy the football game without having to stare at you on the screen.
Right.
I think that's a wonderful thing. It adds.
I do like sports on the radio. I agree with you. I used to listen to the baseball games with my dad. Either the Yankees, the Mets, or whomever. And it is a lot of fun to listen to a good color and a good play-by-play guy or gal call the games, and football too. If you listen to a college football game on the radio, it can be incredibly enjoyable. You don't need to see it.
Wasn't it? I think it was Ray Charles who had a little bit of sight. He wasn't totally blind, but he loved to listen to radio on TV, which kind of contradictory terms there, but you don't have to stare at it. He hit the ball and it was a home run. Do you have to watch that to understand it? Of course not.
No, of course not. And as long as you have a good, somebody who's an upbeat, a good voice for voicing the game, somebody who understands the game, knows what to say, knows what not to say, and once you have that good announcer, there's been many color guys and many good play-by-play guys. You have the whole thing in your mind, and all you need is to hear the voice, maybe the cheer of the crowd once in a while, and you have it. It's just as enjoyable almost as being there. Sometimes more enjoyable than being there.
I've been in this business 26 years, and I had one opportunity because I was forced into it when our sports announcer became ill and could not call the football game that weekend. We used to broadcast high school football games. And, I know, I'm terrible at it. But you know what? I got to use the expression when the quarterback was sacked.
Yes.
I got to use the expression, he dropped him like a bad transmission. And I could walk away from sports announcing forever after that.
After that, that was the high point.
That's not easy, ladies and gentlemen. If you've ever tried to call a football game, it is not easy. Even with a co-commentator and color people, and look it up, what color people, it's not black people. It's people that give you the statistics of the people that you're seeing so that you sound like you know what you're talking about. But anyway.
Right. A lot of the color guys are athletes themselves, and they know sort of the inside out of the game. So they'll give you like what's the player thinking, what's the quarterback thinking kind of stuff. While the play-by-play guy, which I think is harder, has to literally tell you, what's happening on the field, describe it in word pictures, and that's hard to do while you're watching it, because it's almost like you're watching it, processing it, and turning it into cogent thoughts that somebody else can understand. So that it is a hard thing to call a game.
And when you watch the NFL games, if you think those announcers have spent all week studying every person on the roster so they can instantaneously call out their name during a play, that is fiction, ladies and gentlemen. There's a person sitting right next to them on each side of them. One person has the home team, the other person has the visitors team, and it is their job to watch the number of the people involved in the play and simply say in a voice, Bob Smith. And that announcer can hear that, and you don't hear that through their microphone, but he hears it in his voice. Bob Smith made the tackle. Bob Smith made
right.
But because it's so low, if you just talk in a normal voice, there's mics don't pick it up, and they sound like, damn, those guys have done their homework.
Right. Well, it's all part of the magic of this business.
Well, Michael, you are. I'm sorry. You had a thought. Please finish.
No, I wasn't. I was done with my thought. My thought was silly.
Michael Lyons is one of the most brilliant people on this network. We have 39 hosts. Maybe it's 41. I don't know anymore. We've added several shows recently. And his brilliant wife, Margaret, they have a wonderful, wonderful radio show called The Soul of the Everyman. Michael is a prolific is probably the better term, author. Both.
Oh, I'll take both.
Yeah, either way, you guys.
Either way.
He has a great book series out. We have at least 3 of them. We are woefully inadequate for not posting all of the books on the site. That will be corrected shortly. And
there's a lot of books.
And, again, I'll say it again. Most people, 99% of all humans, won't put out a single book. Ever. And you,
Ever.
Ever. And you are chasing L. Ron Hubbard down. Again, for the folks that may have tuned in the last 20 minutes that have no idea what they're listening to, where is the best place for them to go and how can they support you?
Oh, well, as I mentioned, all my books are on Amazon. They're on everything, Apple and Kobo and iTunes. And, if you go there and look up Michael Lyons, Lynes, or any of the Blood series, type in the Blood series, you'll find all those books. Amazon is really great. It's the easiest and best way to get books. But some people prefer, iTunes and Apple. It's all there. Or Kobo for something, or Barnes & Noble. Any of those guys all have it. And we do appreciate your business, and go there, buy the books. I do want to mention there will be a special on Book 1 on Destroyer's Blood. I think starting this Friday, it's going to go down to 99 cents. That's from $2.99 to 99 cents. So don't miss it. You can get Book 1. It's in the Blood is always free. It's a free forever book. So It's in the Blood. The novelette is free. Destroyer's Blood will be going down to 99 cents, or you can wait and get the whole omnibus. Over 1,000 pages for only $4.99, and that'll be coming out December 20th, just in time for Christmas.
Well, that is fantastic. Maybe ebooks are the best way to go, because I saw an article in the New York Times today that said UPS, better known as United Parcel Services, has informed numerous huge retail outlets that they no longer have capacity to deliver their packages before Christmas.
Yeah.
Oops.
There's lots going on there.
You think Louis DeJoy has anything to do with that? I don't know. That's probably something for another show.
Another show.
Louis DeJoy, ladies and gentlemen, is the current Postmaster General. We'll leave that right there. Well, Michael, we got about a couple minutes. What are your parting thoughts?
I do really appreciate. We really do enjoy being hosts on Artists First, and you guys are. It's a great radio station. There's a lot of great talent on there. I won't say that we're just one part of it, and it has the author's journey. It is a rewarding journey, both from the point of view of writing the novels and getting them out there. But we really, really, really all of us appreciate the feedback. So if you if you buy one of the books, or you just want to make a comment, or get on any of these places where we are, and ask a question, shoot us an email. I respond to everything and anything, and we do really appreciate it. We're struggling along out here like everybody. None of us authors are wealthy, but we do really appreciate when people enjoy the work, or don't enjoy it. A bad review is still a review, but do enjoy them, and don't write any bad reviews.
Van Gogh died poor. I don't think Hemingway made all that much money. I don't know who did many of those sculptures from ancient Egypt that are just unbelievably immaculate. No one knows their names. Did they die out in a field? Who knows? And I'm not sure that matters at this point. But, Michael, anything, as always, that our station can do to benefit you in your writing and anything we can help you with, of course, we are at your disposal. Let us know how we can help.
Well, you guys we're doing great as it is, Z, and and also listen to the Soul of Everyman. You guys will enjoy it. Margaret is great, and I'm the color commentary to her wisdom.
Yeah, she's intimidating. I'll tell you what, folks.
She's listening.
I know, man. Damn, I'm glad I don't have a girlfriend like that. I would be hiding under my covers every day. I don't date any women that are smarter than me, okay? You know what I'm saying? And that kind of limits the... No, I mean, that actually doesn't limit any potential candidates. That's pretty much everybody on the planet except Margaret.
Well, I'm just going to have to remain mum.
All right, everybody. All the links are provided. The stuff's on the homepage. It'll be there for a while, and after that, it will be on the Soul of the Everyman page. Get out there and get some great material. It's cheap, folks. It's great entertainment by a brilliant mind. Michael, I guess we'll see you in a couple of days.
Yep, next Tuesday we'll be on 7 o'clock, and tune into the Soul of Everyman.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Glad you joined us.